See, Eagle fans, this is why we can't have nice things. I honestly think we've reached a point to where we've become so expectant of bad linebacker play and inadequate linebacker play. We don't know what to do with ourselves when we actually get pretty dang good linebacker play, which we've had for 2 consecutive years. And I kind of understand because all offseason we were told that we were going to take a major step down in our linebacker play. And even though there were people like myself out here were saying, yeah, it might be a step down, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as people are out there saying, I think it caught a lot of people still off guard that, like, crap, we actually got 3 dudes that can really play. Like, to be fair, Zach Cunningham can play. Nicholas Morrow can play. Nakobe Dean is a player. With that said, I've heard the rumors out there from not just fans, but actual reporters as well, saying that Nakobe Dean's play on the 2023 season has not been that great. And to be fair, in particular, they're really pointing out his defense in passing situations. So with that said, let's take a look a little deeper at Nakobe Dean's play with an eye specifically towards how he's holding up in terms of pass coverage snaps. What's up, Cerebral Football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel. So anytime I'm trying to get a feel for like how a guy has played on the season, I like to see what the broader sense is, right? What the broader consensus is, if you will. I go check things like PFF, and I just want to see where they have him graded. I want to see what they're looking at, why they may or may not have him graded highly, or why they may have said player graded highly. And one of the first things that stands out to me is that, keep in mind, the vast majority of the targets that I'm showing you on the screen, 8 of them came last week versus Washington. So that's a really big marker that I need to go look at and put it under the microscope that game to see what happened. And is this something that the underlying film and analytics together show us that we should be concerned about with Nakobe Dean? Now, I want to start off by saying this right away. I'm not weighing on other content creators' videos. I'm not doing all that stuff, guys. That's their perspective. They're entitled to their opinion. I'm weighing in on what I see from the underlying analytics in the film here. And the first thing that I want to point out here is this. I think Nakobe Dean is way better than people are giving him credit for, even in coverage. But with that said, I did notice that in the fourth quarter, I think it's a false narrative to say he was benched. That's not the feeling I got from watching the game because he was out there on the final drive of that football game. But I do think when we finally got ourselves into a situation to where we were going to be thrown against quite a bit. I mean, to be fair, we were being thrown against all game, but when it became very obvious that we were in pass down situations, they did seem to favor Nicholas Morrow being in there with Zach Cunningham. I saw that there was like 3 consecutive possessions pretty much to where you saw Morrow in, Nakobe out. One of them was the interception that Blankenship got. There was another one that was a turnover on down situation. Like there was like these consecutive possessions to where you could kind of see that they were favoring one player being in there in that situation. Doesn't mean that the young man was benched. It doesn't mean the young man has not been better than what people are saying. It also doesn't mean that the young man doesn't have underlying issues in coverage. All right. What I want to get into is like when I study, Cunningham, when I study, Morrow, when I study Dean, like what am I seeing on film here? The first thing I'll say is if you went by total raw data in terms of like man coverage snaps, which is a better marker for if they trust you or not, right? When you look at the raw data for man coverage snaps, of course, because Nakobe Dean has missed 4 games, guys like Zach Cunningham and guys like Nicholas Morrow have more snaps in man coverage. But when you look at their percentages of their snaps that are spent in man coverage, you get a different perspective. This is what, like, numbers never lie, but they can deceive you depending upon how you look at them. That's kind of the thing with using analytics. So what that tells me is that there is some trust, but I also have gained evidence of when we got into these obvious passing situations, they did seem to favor Nicholas Morrow in that role right there. So there's some conflicting data between the analytics, that particular game, and what they decided to do there, things like that kind of, to push against and try to figure out what the heck is happening here. All right, with that said, in this game, what did I think of Nakobe Dean? I didn't think there was a ton of man coverage snaps to really go off of the 8 targets I can see in the game. And I really only found 7 of the 8. I don't really feel like going and digging through and finding an extra one. I'm not going to do that. However, what I will say is there was a lot of stuff where he was just basically manning up on the running backs and things like that, to which, I thought that whether it was Nakobe Dean doing it, whether it was Nicholas Morrow doing it, I thought they were pretty good. As a matter of fact, the only really big play I saw come from the running backs was actually against Zach Cunningham. And I thought Zach Cunningham had pretty dang good coverage. But look, good ball placement, good receiving back out there. They made a play against pretty good coverage, in my opinion. I don't think it was terrible coverage. I do think that Zach Cunningham did get caught a little bit in the foot speed, but I thought it was pretty late in that route, to be quite honest. And I thought that his length still presented a task that they had to deal with, but they got the ball in there. And to be fair to Zach Cunningham, like, he does have snaps where you can see his length, the pure, just size of this guy in terms of that arm reach and the way that he can play, disrupt passing patterns, which I do think has an effect on Nakobe Dean. While Nakobe Dean's not necessarily out of position a lot, I mean, I have some snaps here I'm going to show you, but with that said, I do think that Nakobe Dean doesn't have the same kind of arm reach and wingspan that, like, a guy like Zach Cunningham has to get in there and disrupt the football. And when you're not doing that, it's going to have an effect in zone coverage snaps. Not maybe as much in man snaps as zone, but if you're not making a play on the ball, you're not getting those forced incompletions, you're not getting those pass breakups, it's going to have an effect on your overall passer rating, to be quite honest, which does play out in the analytics here. Now, the one play I thought Nakobe Dean got beat on, guys, I think people are making much ado about nothing. This is a slot wide receiver and a really shifty one at that. I don't think there's linebacker sticking this dude in most situations. Now, I will critique it. You guys know I coached this game, I played the game, I've done all that stuff. I've scouted inside of this game. What I will tell you is this. He has inside leverage here, Nakobe Dean does. I'm not too sure if he was confused by the coverage call, because to me it looks like these guys are playing man. For whatever reason, Nakobe Dean allows this guy with inside leverage to still get past him, almost if he was expecting to just kind of carry him, and then pass him off to a different zone, but that's not what I'm seeing from the rest of the defense. The rest of the defense looks like it's playing a pure man situation here. Personally, that's what I'm seeing. With that said, like, you go back to the film, like, yeah, he got beat here by a really shifty wide receiver, a slot wide receiver. It's going to happen with linebackers in coverage, okay? But, I mean, look, he's got reps out here where they're using him almost as a Tampa 2-style linebacker. I saw Morrow do it and cover down the seam pretty well. I've seen both of these guys, whether it was, Nicholas Morrow, whether it was Nakobe Dean, when they were dropping back in space, I saw them actually disrupt throwing windows, disrupt throwing patterns. I mean, Nicholas Morrow is a guy who's been in the league for a long time, guys. We got to keep that in mind. We were talking about a very young and inexperienced player who I think, as the game went on, especially in the second half, I thought Nakobe Dean played a lot better in coverage, to be quite honest. There's a few times, like there was another play where I saw him kind of working through, it was a zone-based coverage, and he was working through traffic. And you can see he kind of gets into the tight end for a second, and he's trying to get over to the flats. But by the time he gets over to the flats, it's pretty much at the sticks. I mean, little small hiccups like that. I mean, if that's what we're digging, if that's what we're pulling out, and that's what people are freaking out about, I think this is much ado about nothing, to be quite honest. I don't think he's particularly terrible at it. I don't think he's particularly great. I don't think he's like a top 10, 12 coverage guy right now in his career, but I think people are making too much of a big deal about this, to be quite honest. All right, guys, I appreciate y'all's time and attention. If you would like more videos like this, take a look up here. I appreciate y'all so much, and I'll see y'all in the next video.